Costco Kirkland Signature 20-year-old Speyside Single Malt Scotch Whisky Sherry Cask Finish. Should you be hoarding these? Stay tuned for the Whiskey Whistle. What up, my whiskey people? Mark here from Whiskey Whistle on YouTube, sharing a little whiskey awesomeness from Winnipeg, the center of North America, bringing you a Costco Kirkland Signature Single Malt, aged 20 years, from Speyside. This is finished in sherry casks. It's their sherry cask finish, and it's 46% ABV. I'm guessing that's probably unchill filtered, but it doesn't say on the bottle. I'm also guessing that this is natural in color, but it also doesn't say so on the bottle. What it does say is that this was matured for 20 years in ex-bourbon barrels and then finished for 6 months in Oloroso sherry casks. Oloroso sherry casks. Very cool. Now, this is a Whiskey Whistle loan, a donation from a Winnipeg Whiskey Club member. Winnipeg Whiskey Club. That is Rick. Rick, thanks so much for all of your patronage. I am just so thrilled that you're willing to lend me your bottles, especially for the long periods of time that it sometimes takes me to get through those. Now, this is a beautiful bottle, I have to say. I do like the bottles that they use for Kirkland single malts. Nice and tall. It's got a slight, sort of a classic style. But they're using a wooden cork stop, which is cool. And the extra cool thing is that back in, I think it was maybe 2014, maybe it was 2013, but me and a buddy of mine, Fred, who now lives in Ontario. Hey, Fred. We both bought bottles of Kirkland Signature back when they had a black label. He bought the 18, I bought the 20. The 20 was 75,000 won in Korea. Sorry, the 18 was 75,000 won in Korea. The 20 was 95,000 won. So we bought them both. We shared them both, and we love them both. And you can actually find my tasting notes from that on my personal channel for Mark Kaufman on Facebook. So I'll update that and I'll post that again on the Whiskey Whistle page on Facebook as well. Now let's get that poured. And that particular one, by the way, that old 20-year-old was 40% ABV. And it didn't mention sherry anything. All it said was that it was a Speyside, and I think it was from the Glenlivet region. It might have been from Glenlivet, the distillery, or it may have been from the Glenlivet as an area, because there's two different distinctions there. So the Glenlivet refers to the brand known as Glenlivet. Glenlivet, the area, there's quite a few distilleries, one of which is Tomintoul Glenlivet. There's quite a few actually. Now let's just get that whiskey hat on there. This is 20 years old. And in a perfect world, we let it sit like that with a nice whiskey hat. That could be a whiskey hat like this one from Aquavitae, or like this one from Scotch for Dummies, or like this one from No Nonsense Whiskey. Those work very well. Mine will come out someday, or you can get a fancy Glencairn whiskey glass, whiskey lid. Also elegant. Anyway, we should let that sit for 20 minutes. I'll let it sit for a couple of minutes, and we'll just talk a little bit about, well, one thing, the Winnipeg Whiskey Club. If you happen to be in Winnipeg, make sure you check out winnipegwhiskeyclub.com. Even if you're here visiting, or you got family here, or you're here for business or pleasure or whatever, if it's the end of the month, we always meet the last Wednesday of each month. Now, we're going to check out the color of the whiskey. Then we'll check out the legs of the Kirkland Signature 20-year-old Speyside Single Malt Scotch Whisky Sherry Cask Finish. So the color, first of all. Now, my sense is that that's natural. It might have a slight little bit of your E150A added. I'm not too sure. But it's 20 years old, 6 months in Oloroso casks. That would have had an effect. And yes, I've tested this already. This is the second dram from the bottle. It tastes quite heavily sherried. For 6 months, that's pretty good. Of course, the initial maturation was in ex-bourbon. So, quite interesting that it's really had such a profound effect from that sherry cask for 6 months. Darker gold, almost into copper, and beautiful shade. And I'm going to try to keep the hat on because I want to keep in that aged... Oh, this is nice. This is what you can do. You can hold it like that and you can spin it, kind of like a rotisserie. Let's check out those legs. A little bit brisk. There are some nice legs developing though. Hopefully you can see that. And they do slow down as they drizzle. So I'm feeling, should be a decent mouthfeel. Might be slightly thin. All right, let's get on to the nose for the Costco Kirkland Signature aged 20 years Speyside single malt Scotch whiskey sherry cask finish. On the nose, in fact, you do get big bourbon matured whiskey notes. Rich spice. Lots of vanilla, lots of cinnamon, lots of ginger. A tiny hint of nutmeg, a little bit of dried fruit. A little bit of dried pineapple. Really fresh oak. Fresh oak furniture. A slight little bit of polished wood. The tiniest hint of leather working in the background there. Oh, and if I go to the Canadian Whiskey flavor wheel and I'm looking up, I'm looking up leather, I see that that is creosol. So that's interesting. It's got a quite nice, elegant nose, reminiscent of Glenmorangie 18-year-old, the older Glenmorangie 18, minus the apricot-y note. Okay, on to the palate. Cheers, everyone, and a big cheers to Rick. Cheers, buddy. It's really zesty. A little bit sherbety, prickly, fizzy. I have a feeling that that was 20 years in first fill. It just says ex-bourbon barrels. I'm guessing that's first fill. It could be a bit of second fill, but really big, fresh, sweet oaky notes. Lots of cinnamon, lots of ginger. And this is fresh sliced ginger. Not the ginger candy, not pickled ginger. Actually, I'm going to correct myself. This is a bourbon matured whiskey with a slight little dollop of sherry notes added from the 6 months in Oloroso, which added a hint of nutmeg. They've added a little bit of that dried fruit. I'm getting the dried pineapple here. Maybe just a couple of these Thompson seedless raisins thrown in. Sweet, again very zesty. Overbrewed black tea. a hint of leather on the finish now. Dry finish. It's tart, bitter. Just a tiny bit of sweetness on the finish. A little bit of like a peach note. Peach skins. And now that I think about it, yes, palate. Excellent done. Sales on these. Alright, so this retails for $58 US, probably about $80 in Canada. And you're getting a 20-year-old whiskey. It's 46% ABV. It's finished in Oloroso for 6 months. It's got a lot of details stated on the label. I believe it's near natural color, if not natural. So there's a lot of great things going for this. So if you are a budget whiskey connoisseur and you want to try 20-year-old whiskey, this is a great option for you. With water on the palate, you really do get more of this peachy note. Peach, fuzzy peach, the candy as well. When you think about flavor, it's got subtle sweetness, some well-developed, fresh tartness, a dollop of bitterness. This doesn't have any umami notes. Spice, salt, no. The mouthfeel is light to medium. The finish with water is exceptionally better than without. Much more of this peach flesh note. The peach skins have almost disappeared on the finish. I feel like it's really bumped up a notch with water added. I want to add one more drop and see what happens. A little bit more fruit coming on the nose. There's a slight candy note, like sour soothers, like the fuzzy peaches. And it's really tamed down that effervescent, fizzy, sherbety quality of the whiskey. Much juicier. You still get that dried pineapple. You still get that little bit of the light raisins coming through there. But big peach. The finish especially reminds me of not the tinned peaches, but the leftover syrup in the can that you might try a sip of, which actually I think if you haven't made a cocktail with the leftover syrup from a can of canned peaches, I think that would be something cool to try. Much thicker and richer now that water's been added as well. This really seems to be hydrophilic. Well, it's time. Let's get on to the WhiskyWhistle Whiskey Score. And before I say that, again, I just have to say thanks to everybody, the whole whiskey community that has been supporting me and helping me locally and abroad, online and offline. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I think, yes, Glenmorangie 18 would be about the closest sort of similarity that I could draw here for this one. And I would say that when you compare the price, it'd be really hard to spend 3 times as much, at least double in USA. That's going to be from $60 US, probably $120, maybe $130 now for Glenmorangie 18. In Canada, we're talking $80, I believe, sometimes on sale for less, and then up to about $200 for Glenmorangie 18. And I think that, you know, if you're a real Glenmorangie lover, that might be the way. But on a budget, this is great. Even for anybody looking to try something from Speyside that's a bit older, that you don't have to spend a huge fortune on. So well done, Alexander Murray & Co. And well done to Costco for putting out this excellent Kirkland Signature 20-year-old Speyside single malt Scotch whiskey finished in sherry casks. The sherry cask finish. Now let's get on to the WhiskyWhistle whiskey score for this one. The Kirkland Signature 20-year-old, aged 20 years, Speyside single malt Scotch whiskey, sherry cask finish. What is that going to be? Well, folks, it's going to be 88 out of 100. You heard it. 88 out of 100 is the WhiskyWhistle whiskey score for this very interesting, very oak forward, very fruity, very hydrophilic 20-year-old Speyside single malt from Alexander Murray & Co. And Steve Lipp, well done. Cheers to you. A big thumbs up to Rick and to all the Winnipeg Whiskey Club members. Big thumbs up to you as well. We'll see you very soon. Don't forget to subscribe to Whiskey Whistle. Hit the link right over here. Hit the bell also so you're notified of the future Whiskey Whistles. That really helps Whiskey Whistle. And if you've been watching it until now, jump in and join the Whiskey Whistle crew on Patreon. Patreon.com/Whiskey Whistle. And if you're in Winnipeg, jump in and join the Winnipeg Whiskey Club. Anyway, take care. Thanks, everybody. Goodbye now.